Welcome to the Especially for Athletes podcast, where we explore essential principles that empower athletes to learn life's most valuable lessons through sports.
Hey, Dustin, how are you, man?
Good, Shad. Good to see you, buddy.
You too. I'm excited to have this conversation today because it really is getting at the heart of what our program is about, one of the aspects of it. We ask our athletes to live their life with their eyes up, and when they see something that needs to be addressed, to do the work to address it. And I saw a video come across social media the other day and shared it on our story. I know you as a football coach sent it to parents of the kids that you coach and said, hey, here's homework, watch this with your kid. Maybe what we'll do is start by playing the video, and then coming out of that, I would love to know why, as a football coach, when you saw that, why you sent it to your parents. And then the discussion today is about how athletes could help young people when they see people being picked on or bullied. What's the appropriate way for an athlete to respond? And then there's a few nationwide examples, but that we'll talk about and talk through to give parents and athletes something to talk about. Like, look, here's what you could do. You don't need to do this, just do this, right? And so here's that video. And then coming out of the video, I would just love to know, why did you share that with the parents of your football team? What's your hope there? And what would be your hope for athletes when they see something like this? It's pretty heartbreaking, but here's the young kid talking to his parents.
I say to you, they make fun of my nose. They call me ugly. They say I have no friends. What'd they do to you at lunch? Poured milk on me and put a hand down my clothes, threw bread at me. Is it just you? Yep. Or is it other kids too that feel that way? Say it's other kids too. How's that make you feel? I don't like that they do it to me, and I for sure don't like that they do it to other people, because it's not okay. People that are different don't need to be criticized about it, because it's not their fault. But if you are made fun of, just don't let it bother you. Just stay strong, I guess. It's hard. But it'll probably get better one day.
Well, I'll tell you, Shad, that's I listened to that a handful of times and then walked in on my wife actually listening to it emotional when she was watching it and listening to it. And that's why I felt like I needed to share it. I feel like all of these things, if we come across something, we can't just assume that our kids know better. I think that's the main reason, right? It's really easy to assume that's always somebody else's boy or somebody else's girl that's the bully, that's the problem. And assume that we've just taught them better, because we think we have in many cases. And then we come to find out that, and we were the same way when we were young. We're not always the same person and, away from our parents that we are in the front room when they're there, right? And we all, say or do things that we wouldn't say or do probably if mom or dad was right there. And so we just have to share it. That was my whole, so I shared it first with the boys on the team and said, please watch this. This is what I want you to be like this young man. I thought that young man was a leader. The things he said there at the end, I went from this kid's a victim and I felt so sorry to still feeling awful for that boy. But also the thought came across my mind, holy cow, this kid has maturity and leadership just dripping from him. Like, what a awesome young man. That's what leadership is. So I shared it to the boys to say, this is what I mean when I say be a leader and be a real man. This is what I'm talking about. And then I realized, as parents, I would want something sent to me. I saw that on our story on accident. You had shared it on our story. I'm not on social media much at all. I'm really only on it to look at our stuff. And I went on there to look and saw that a story had been posted. And I saw that and I thought, gosh, I'm glad I saw that. I'm glad that was shared. So, I think the more we can help each other, maybe touch that emotional button sometimes in us to say, you know what? yeah, I need to go have another conversation with my kids about this. We just have to, it can't be a one-time conversation and then assume our son or daughter will never do this. It has to be regular.
Yeah. And the temptation is, when I think back to junior high and high school Shad Martin, right? Like, I don't think I ever did that to people. Like, I never poured milk on people, called people ugly, made fun of their noses. I honestly don't remember. If I ever did, man, if someone could reach out to me, I'll apologize right now and make it right. But I honestly have no recollection of being mean to people.
Yeah.
But I was an idiot teenager, so I'm sure there's a chance of that. But I think the temptation for some athletes would be, oh, yeah, I know what they're asking me to do, right? If I ever see that, I'm going to kick the crap out of the person who's treating someone like that. Like, I'm going to bully the bullying right out of that kid, right?
Yeah.
And that's not what we're asking athletes to do. So you coach, like, you have 100 plus kids in your program there, at all levels that look up to you as a coach at Spanish Fork High School right now, and a youth program. Like, if you were to tell those kids, when you see this, when you see someone at your school being picked on, this is what I hope you will do. As your coach, I hope you will fill in the blank. Like, what would be your dream for your own son who's coming up through that age right now when he saw this? What would you want him to do? How can athletes do that?
Well, maybe before I answer that, a short history lesson for the people listening to this, especially for athletes, started in large part because of this. It was bullying. It's transpired into all sorts of other things, from suicide prevention and mental health and leadership and sportsmanship and all these other things. But it originally had a very heavy, I'd say, Shad, probably 70%, 80% of the program was based around bullying. I've told the story that when I really started talking to the quarterbacks that I train in my other business was after watching my daughter, who was being bullied in 4th grade, walk into her school. And I watched 2 6th graders walk behind her, and one of them had a t-shirt on from one of my football camps. He'd been to one of my quarterback elite camps. I didn't know him, but I recognized the shirt, and it dawning on me that we need to talk to these athletes more about how they can help people in their school. And that was really the start of talking to quarterbacks and athletes about helping others and looking out for others and keeping their eyes up and doing the work. And the phrase, especially because you're an athlete, kept coming up. And that led to especially for athletes. And you have this spotlight on you. And then you and I wrote, the book, and and you said, well, the Sportlight, that's the same thing as Spotlight. That's how all this stuff came to be. But it started with this desire to want to address bullying and suicides, both of which were talked about all the time back then. Still, I hope are still problems. And us wanting the athletes and the same. So this hasn't changed. I'd want my sons, I'd want my daughters, I'd want the kids I coach in especially for athletes in QB Elite and in the high school, to first go up to the boy being bullied and step in front of the situation and address him first. Step in front of it, take him aside and say, hey, guys, that's enough. And take him aside and say, are you okay? Are you good? Like, that's how I think awesome. That's the first thing to do. There is a part of me though, Shad, and I think I actually sent this to you on that when I saw that story, because you had written appropriately. You're the smart end of this two-headed monster.
Thank you for recognizing that. No,
you had written on the story, to be kind and don't be a bully back. And I had written, or just go knock their teeth out. Right. I think that was my response. That's the other response, is you can just go, knock their teeth out the back of their head. Cause there's a part of me that would be okay with that, to be honest with you. And I think sometimes the kid doing that needs that. He needs somebody to come and just, I'm sorry, but I may be old school in that, but I do. I think sometimes the kids who are that mean and that cruel need to have somebody bigger and stronger than them come and let them know what it feels like. But I know that's not the right way to teach, and we shouldn't do that. But I would ask the athletes to stop the situation and then address the kid that's being bullied so that and let him know, hey, talk to the kid, be with him, walk him to class, be more aware of him. Then you probably got to go talk to adults and things. But Shad, let's be honest, man. Sorry, adults. Sorry, admin. You try, but you can't get to all of them. And very rarely do the adults in the situation actually prevent this from happening. It has to be the kids, I think, and the parents. That's who's going to prevent. And if the parents aren't going to do it and the admin aren't going to do it, and I understand that's hard to do. Sometimes athletes need to get involved, and sometimes they need to get involved in a way that, may not always be the friendly, nice, hey guys, would you stop picking on this kid? But
well, can I say something about that?
Yeah,
because I think one of the things with the Spotlight is there is a threat there. Does that make sense? It's not that you're going to go and initiate violence, but when you're a big, strong football player, or when you're a cheerleader with social influence, and you're walking up to someone and saying, "Hey, stop it! Like, that's not cool." There is that position that they know that if things go down, it's not going to turn out good for me. Allows you to have that influence to really get someone to stop it and to say, "Hey, you're not going to do that again."
Yeah.
But then I think often if we just leave it there, I actually feel like it could leave the kid feeling weak instead of empowered, the kid that was being bullied. But if you do the other part you're talking about, like, "Hey, dude, you okay? What are you doing for lunch? You want to come with us for lunch? Like, you got a group of friends here." Then that's empowering to the kid. They feel valued instead of just protected. I think if we only leave a kid feeling protected, we've done kind of half the job.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we put a Band-Aid on that particular situation if we just go in and say, hey, stop. All right, everyone go, and everyone walks to class or whatever, and that's it. Yeah. We now need to engage in this young man's life, the victim's life, and make sure that they feel like they've got a support group around them. And that's the work. What we just said, to step in and just say, "Hey, stop," I don't think that's work, Shad. I think that most every human being, might be hard to do it, and so I guess it's a little bit of work, because for me, it's not. I don't understand how people watch another person suffer and don't get involved. When I see people recording things going bad in somebody's life and everyone grabs their phone to record it, I'm shocked at, well, go help him. Like, stop recording this, put your phone down and go help the person. Right. But for some people it's hard to, and I get that, but where the real work is now making sure that this person feels like they have a group now to involve them and be with them so that they're not alone, and they feel like they have somebody and you're engaged in their life now. That's going to take some work, and that's going to take leadership. And that's the core of, especially for athletes, because you're right. That's why we said, especially the athletes can address this stuff. You can especially prevent or stop this from happening because you're an athlete. You have the spotlight on you, the spotlight. That's
and a team around you.
And a team around you, exactly. Just with that, you come with a presence that the other person's going to have to acknowledge is real. And everybody should, but especially the athletes. That's the whole point of the program. And yes, you're right. If hopefully it can stop at that. If it doesn't, then especially the athletes, you know how to do hard things and make sure that things get done. And sometimes the bullies, I think, need to be very strictly addressed and talked to.
That's a very good way to say it.
That's my political.
Here's some things going back to what you said. And we have well-meaning parents. We have incredible admin and teachers who love students. And I don't believe there's many teachers that would see these things happening and not address it, or principals and admin in schools or coaches. But listen to these statistics. This is interesting. 19.2%, so 1 in 5 students aged 12 through 18 report being bullied during the 2021-2022 school year. So 1 in 5 at some point in that school year, just a couple years ago, reported that they were bullied. 70.6% of young people say, I've seen it. I've witnessed it in my school. But then this is what's interesting. Bullying, when they say, okay, you've been bullied at school, where were you bullied? 39% of the time, it happens in a classroom. 37.5% of the time, it happens in hallways. And 21.6% of the time, it's online. And so, like, people, this isn't a thing where we talk to kids and we're like, hey, you know, this is like a 1 in a million chance. It's why, you know, like you and I, if I need to get a concealed weapons permit because there's this 1 in 1 million chance that I'm going to be in an instance where I need to help someone. That we aren't talking about that. We're talking 7 in 10 kids are going to witness this happening, what we're talking about, at least once in a school year. So if we could train them, especially the athletes, as we've talked about, hey, when you see it, you need to address it. Now, some will feel comfortable because of the situation walking up and being like, hey, this isn't happening. Yeah. Right? Others might be a little bit more timid, or it might be a young lady who sees young men, you know, bullying another young man. And in that instance, at least show love and concern for the kid being bullied. Yeah. You can imagine the impact it would have, Dustin, if this beautiful young lady, if some boys thinking they were impressing other people, walk up to this young man and they're bullying him. And then this beautiful young lady walks up and is like, hey, are you okay? Doesn't even say anything to the guys, you know, that are doing the bullying. Are you okay? I'm so sorry they're treating you this way. Yeah. Like, that influence can be huge. And I thought that was a little bit alarming. I mean, 4 in 10 that are bullied in classrooms where there is an adult present and kids still feel comfortable doing it.
And that's that's kind of what I was saying before, is that the teachers and the admin can't be expected to keep their eyes on all, 1,500 kids or whatever at the school, because they're not always in the hall and in the cafeteria and don't part of every conversation in the classroom. But Shad, I think let me add one more thing to what we say by do the work and leadership, because this might be the hardest of all. And the reason I bring it up is because I'm reminded of years ago, when we were talking about this before we were doing the podcast, you sharing a story about a hunting dog being injured, and the hunter getting frustrated with his dog because he wouldn't go chase down, the birds that were being shot, and throwing his dog into the truck and embarrassed that this dog wasn't doing anything, and then finding out the dog was injured, right? And that's why the dog wasn't chasing down the birds. He'd been cut by a barbed wire fence running, and he was hurting, and that's why he was acting the way he was acting. So
let me put that video. I'll put that video in right here. Okay, let's watch that video real quick and then come out of that video and then, I'd love to hear your thoughts so everyone knows the story here. So here's the video, and then come out of it and tell us what you're thinking. Most people are not idiots. They are injured. This is the lesson that someone taught me that literally changed the way I looked at people. Here's the story that taught them the lesson that they shared with me. Jack had a hunting dog that he loved, and he was so excited to show off his new hunting dog to his new son-in-law. They drove to where they would be hunting, climbed through a barbed wire fence, and headed back to the pond. Pretty soon the duck started to fly in, and Jack shot the first duck and told his dog to fetch it up. But his dog just stayed where it was and did not respond to Jack's commands. More forcefully, Jack said, "Fetch it up," and finally his dog meandered over, grabbed the bird, and brought it back. Pretty soon another duck flew upon him, and the son-in-law shot it, and it came tumbling down in the pond. Once again, Jack told his dog to fetch it up, and once again, the dog did not respond. Frustrated, Jack coaxed his dog into the pond, and it swam this 10-foot circle and came back without the duck. Jack's son-in-law turned to him and said, "I don't feel comfortable shooting birds that your dog's not going to retrieve." Agreeing, but dejected and frustrated, Jack, his son-in-law, and the dog headed back to the truck. He put down his tailgate and told his dog to load up, but the dog wouldn't jump in. Frustrated, Jack picked up his dog, threw it in the back of the truck, and when he went to go shut his tailgate, he noticed he had blood all over his hands. Examining his dog, he found that his dog had a 6-inch cut on his belly that he must have got from the barbed wire fence. Instantly, Jack's emotion changed from frustration to compassion. He wanted to help his dog. Most of the time, when people are behaving inappropriately, like Jack's dog, they are injured, they're not idiots. That lesson changed the way I looked at the world. When I see someone behaving like an idiot, I tell myself they're injured. Then my heart is full of compassion and a desire to help instead of frustration and a desire to criticize. Give it a try. It sure has helped me in my life. I'll forever be grateful for that lesson that Jack taught me. Keep your eyes up and do the work.
So that video explains something that we should probably talk about, and that is that the real leadership, like the real get your hands dirty doing the work. When we say eyes up, do the work. It's also addressing the fact that the person doing the bullying may be acting in a way that doesn't make sense and acting out or acting for attention because they're injured. Just like the story that you show, Chad, that dog was acting differently, not because that's not who it was. That's just, it was in a moment where it was injured and it was acting in a way that appeared to be frustrating to other people. I believe behind these bullies are other issues. Probably at the end of that, the start of that issue is a parent, okay, that's dropping the ball. Yeah. But it could be another sibling in their family. It could be unrelated to a parents being neglecting or anything, just a tough life. They're just dealing with stuff and their outlet to get attention or to feel more powerful or whatever is to do what they're doing. Now, that doesn't give them an excuse to cause another person harm. The real leadership and the real work would be if our athletes, if we could teach our kids and if we could teach the kids we coach to go talk to the bully at some point and just say, "Hey, are you good? Are you okay? I'm so-and-so. I don't know you, but I saw what happened with with whatever, Mike in the hallway. Are you okay?" And the truth is, Shad, that in a perfect world, they're going to say, "No, I'm not okay. Thank you for coming over and talking to me." And right, I feel so bad I picked on that kid and I just needed someone this is going to save my life. The truth is that's probably not going to happen. They might even turn and say some pretty mean things to you. But the least they know, somebody was interested in him and reached out. And my guess is that question, "Are you okay? Is there anything I can do to help you?" might get them to think a little bit and may lighten the flame a little bit, right? Yeah. Put down the flame of the fire a little bit versus if we're just screaming and yelling and a person like that's just going to be more inflamed and I think more likely to be more defensive and defend themselves. So, it's a tight line that we have to walk there. But I think what you said in the story you shared, showing love to both would be ideal. There is times when, it is what it is and you got to address the fact that it's not stopping and somebody needs to be, maybe addressed. But being sensitive to both parties as much as possible is probably the way to go about it. Yeah, and then you got to try to get adults involved. But parents and coaches, this is happening more. We probably should find studies on this, Shad, but I don't see this being a high school thing. Not that it doesn't happen in high school, it does. But this is more in middle school, junior high, elementary. That kind of 5th to 8th, 9th grade is where I think the bulk of this stuff's happening. I think most high school kids kind of know you probably don't go make fun of, a special needs kid. Like that's just, they're more mature. But these young kids that we think are just these sweet, innocent 12-year-old girls and boys can be cruel.
Yeah. There's that saying, Dustin, someone replied to that video, and they said something that just resonates with me. Hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
And I really believe that. And I love what you're saying there, because even if you go up to someone, like you said, and it doesn't end all warm and fuzzy, but a lot of times people bully because they just want to be almost in control. They feel so low themselves that they're almost trying to convince themselves that I am above someone. And if I could bully someone, that means at least I'm not the lowest, right? Because they're feeling so low. But to go to someone who's in that state of mind and to say, are you okay? Like, why are you treating people this way? Are you all right, man? Which, it takes a special person to do that. That's why we say especially for athletes, because I think an athlete could do that without fear of someone coming back at them, because they have the confidence, they have, oftentimes to do that. But I think at least it plants something in the mind of that kid that I was just making fun of that person, but I'm the one that something's actually wrong with, right?
Yes.
Is there something wrong here? And I believe that that's a big thing. And if we could see why people do what they do. But one other thing, Dustin, what you just said, I think is super profound. And I hope parents that are listening to this, I've had daughters go up through now. I have one that's a junior. So your kids are kind of that same age, your first three are the same age basically as my daughters. And so I've seen my kids go up and through elementary, junior high, high school. Junior high is like Lord of the Flies, man. Like, those kids are so cruel to each other, and they're trying to establish identity, and they're so insecure themselves. And so they oftentimes lash out at other kids. And I do think this stuff is way less common in high school than it is in junior high, meaning the bullying part of it. And so that's a message, though, for high school athletes as well. As you talk with younger kids and younger athletes, you get invited to schools to read and to do those things, like to hear you call this stuff out and to say, this isn't cool, don't do this. That stuff is important, and it can have a big effect. But I think these discussions need to happen. If I had my way, it'd be with every sixth grader, Fifth grade, there's this beautiful innocence. Every kid's cool, and it seems that sixth grade to ninth grade could be crazy.
Yeah. And as nice as our kids seem, and all these kids are good kids, but all kids also say and do things that I think they'll look back at. We all have probably said or done something when we were 12, 13, 14 years old that looking back at, we were ashamed of, and we just didn't get it yet socially or whatever. We didn't quite understand it. And so we need to help those kids who are doing it understand that it's wrong, and that they're probably something else. They're hurt as well. There's something else going on, but make sure that the victim, that's the key, that they then feel part of something. They shouldn't be alone. That young man that we shared the video on, I hope that he has a group of people walking with him and hanging out with him and protecting him. And because that's the best way to address the bullies, I think, is to support the kids in such a way that the bullies realize that what they're doing isn't popular, and it isn't cool, and it isn't appreciated. In fact, the other person is becoming more appreciated and liked and loved because they are being picked on. But then when you can and you feel the courage to do it, get a chance to talk to the bully if possible, and that's hard. I mean, that we're asking a lot for kids to do that, but that's
but
where
there are some kids who could do it, man.
Yeah,
and that's why we share the message that we share with people. Is there are kids out there right now. I understand we're talking to a subset of kids. There's kids that are bullied, and right now they're hearing this and they're saying, I wish someone would do something for me. There's other kids that, maybe they don't feel physically or even socially adept enough to say, I can address that with the bully. But there is a group of kids out there, and you parents, you know who those kids are, and your kid might be one of them. And coaches, you know what kids are and when I say alphas, I know that phrase has been kind of blown up into something it isn't, but the alpha wolf in a pack, that's the one that takes care of the pack, right?
Yeah.
Like that alpha is the ultimate protector. So for you alphas or parents of alphas that are listening to this, you could do something about this. You could change if you decided that, no, this isn't happening at our school, and you got with other like-minded people, you could eliminate it. I believe you could eliminate the overt stuff. Here's why we need to. This is interesting, Dustin. I did look up some studies in preparation for this. This is why it's important to have these discussions. Victims of bullying are 9 times more likely to report suicidal thoughts. According to the CDC, students who are bullied are at much higher risk for depression, for anxiety, and for sleep disorders. There are kids depressed, anxious to go to school, literal physical stomach aches because of the way they're being treated at school. It makes them nauseous because of nervousness to go. There's kids that are having a hard time falling asleep at night because they know they have to wake up and go to school the next day and be treated the way that they're being treated. So there are many examples out there. We'll put a few in our YouTube channels this week and in our social media about this topic, but that people could go to and look for that. But the truth of the matter is to think that there are kids like this young man that we started the podcast with that are having people treat them like that are wondering if their life is worth it, that are depressed and anxious and having a hard time sleeping because they have to go to school the next day. If having this discussion with everyone who listens to this, if you just sat down with your kids or your team and said, hey, you're going to see this stuff. Statistics say that 70% of you are going to witness it.
Yeah.
Online, in the hallways, in a classroom somewhere, sometimes even on your own team. Please address it. And parents, you know who your kids are. And those kids who are listening to this, you know who you are. You can address it a number of ways. One, show love to the kid who's being bullied and make sure they know that they're loved by someone. But there are some of you who could address these things, not even on an individual basis, but to say, this is not happening at our school.
Yeah.
You know, there are some with such influence. They could say, this is not happening at our school.
Yep.
And I hope that they'll do that. Any closing thoughts, Dustin, that you have on this?
Maybe the first statistic I ever used when I'd speak at schools was this one. I still use it. It's several years old, but I assume it's still fairly accurate. Around 160,000 kids a day don't go to school out of the fear of being bullied. So you have to be so afraid to fake sick or to slough, say you're going and then not go, right? Leave the house. Mom thinks you're at school and then you don't, or you're faking sick or something. 160,000 comes out to be almost 2 kids at every public school in America every day. So just remember when we're talking to our kids, 2 kids at your local elementary, 2 kids at your local junior high school, 2 kids at your local high school, this very second aren't at school because they were so afraid something was going to happen. They were going to be embarrassed and made fun of because of the way they looked or the way they talked or the way they dressed or whatever, that they didn't go. And if those are even at all true, even close to true, then this can't be just a once every year or two discussion with one assembly that's done a year to talk about bullying, or posters that are put up in hallways that talk about bullying.
Or bring awareness. Like 70% are aware. They've seen it. We don't need awareness programs out there.
And that's what we are, Shad, right? We've said this a million times. We're an awareness program, but we are a prevention. We're a get things done program. Enough of the just talking about it, making people aware of it, crap, man. It's a problem. We know it's a problem. All this stuff is. We're aware, for heaven's sakes. We're aware that these are issues. What are we going to do about it? Right? We got to get into the hard to discuss things, and we've got to get into the dirt of the matter and get our hands dirty fixing it. And that means you need people willing to do hard things. That's why we say, well, everybody should, but how about the athletes, especially them, because they got a position to stop it now and they know how to do hard things. So that's what because it shouldn't be 106, it should be 0 kids, not 160,000. Shad, this podcast, you and I have been talking for 34 minutes. According to national statistics, 3 people under the age of 25 have tried to take their life since we started this. My guess is all 3 of them probably were bullied. And it only takes one, hopefully a member of Especially for Athletes, if that's it. If our kids are listening, to maybe go and do something to prevent that one from happening. And that might not happen in junior high or high school. The taking of the life might happen when they're 26 or 30, because stuff that was rooted in junior high school finally shows itself in their mid-20s or 30s from lack of self-esteem and confidence and other issues that then boils over later in life. So it's not just, hey, we got through high school this year and nobody took their life. So a successful year, everybody. Good job, admin. Good job, coaches. Good job, kids. No, kids were still damaged. Like, we have to address the problem, not just talk about the problem. And we're trying to address it. And we feel the best way to address it is every human being should have their eyes up and do the work, especially the athletes, because of the spotlight. But parents and coaches, we have to talk to our kids regularly about this and nip it at the bud if it ever happens immediately. No tolerance for it. And just, we just got to be kinder and more empathetic to people.
And I would say that everything an adult or an admin or a teacher sees, just assume that it's 10 times worse when you're not there.
Yep.
And my heart goes out to these kids. I wish I could get in contact with the kid, Dustin. You and I'd probably fly out and take that kid to lunch. And
I know. I thought the same thing. How do we find this kid and
find that kid? If anyone can help us find that kid, we'll find that kid's football team and we'll surround that kid we'll get him on the front row of some NFL games and NBA games. And that kid what a leader, man. I mean, I can't wait to see where he's at in 20 years from now.
Yeah. That kid you can tell that kid is a resilient, tough kid who's hurting deep, but he's tough, man. That kid is tough.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. Please have this discussion, not just right now, but all the time. Make sure your kid is a kid who it's one thing to be not a bully. It's another thing to be someone who looks out for others and intentionally lifts others. And we've had that discussion so many times. We could talk for 2 hours about this, but the point of this episode is just to say, will you have this discussion with your kids, with your teams frequently? There's kids out there hurting. Athletes are in a position to help. So keep your eyes up and do the work. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining the Especially for Athletes podcast. To learn more about Especially for Athletes organization, get a copy of our book, The Spotlight, or to bring our program to your team, school, business, or organization, visit us at especiallyforathletes.org.